Hi everybody, welcome. It's the 28th of December, so Christmas is finished. We're waiting for the New Year now. Still in Wrocław until the 2nd of January. I wanted to make a quick video thinking over the Christmas period about how long I've been coming to Poland, how much I love the country and learning the language, and the fact that kids are half Polish and King's Polish and everything else that you've seen on all the other videos. I thought I would make a quick video about my first ever trip to Poland, which I don't think I've done before. I was racking my brains thinking of the things to talk about because a couple sprang to mind. So I'm just going to talk about when it was, what happened, and some of it I think is quite amusing, especially when I didn't understand any Polish at that time. I think I learned a few rude words. I didn't speak or understand much at all. Anyway, so going back to 2005, it was Easter, March the 27th was Easter Sunday that year. Me and Kinga started seeing each other in October 2004, so we'd only been together 5 or 6 months. So at this stage, it was nothing serious. I was 25, Kinga was 26, and I was invited by Kinga to visit Poland. Of course, open to seeing the world and seeing different places. It wasn't a place that I would ever go on holiday, I thought, so I went. I can't remember, at this time the flights weren't regular or from local airports. I think we flew from London, from Gatwick or somewhere with Polish LOT Airlines. Nowadays you can fly from so many airports to Wrocław. So that was the first thing. We had to drive to London 2 hours, which was just a pain. Then we flew. And we flew with Kinga's friend and my friend Dominika. The plan was that Dominika's mother's partner was going to pick us up from the airport here in Wrocław. We landed, my first impression was, wow, this airport's tiny, small, staffed by the military or the army. The airport was tiny, one gate. We got into this car owned by Dominika's mother's partner, and we drove probably an hour. But this time there was no ring road around the city of Wrocław, which came around sort of 2011. In 2005 there was no ring road, so we had to drive through the city centre to get to our osiedle, our estate. The roads through the city centre were cobbled, so we were in an old car. I'm pretty sure the driver had a drink. I don't mean coffee. We drove through, it wasn't Dominika's mum's partner driving, it was his friend. So he was in the passenger seat, me, Dominika, Kinga in the back. We drove from the airport through the cobbled streets, like this over all the roads. I was thinking, my word, where am I? Eventually, an hour later, we get to osiedle, our estate. I get out of the car, the first thing I see is just blocks of flats, towers of flats, and I was like, okay, didn't know what to make of that. In England, most people live in houses. We do have flats, of course. We don't have too many towers or blocks of flats. In big cities we do, but in towns where I live, we do have flats and apartments, but they're maybe in like smaller complexes. So for me, being from a small town coming to a big city, I've been to lots of big cities all over the world, but to come to Wrocław and then see, oh, this is my block, Kinga said, and there was graffiti all over the wall. I looked over to the side, there was the communal bins where everyone puts their rubbish, and there was a guy rummaging through the rubbish trying to take the aluminium cans to make some money. So that was my first impression, was where the hell am I? We got to the flat was nice, and everything from that point on was great. Kinga obviously had a son already, Bartek. He was, I don't know, 6, 7, he would have been 7 in August 2005, so he was 6.5 when I first came here. Remember, I didn't speak any Polish at that time, probably cześć, do widzenia, dziękuję, maybe dzięki, not dziękuję. That was it. And maybe even not that much. I had no... at that point I'd been with Kinga for 5 months, so I had no idea that we would get married and have children and stay together forever. It was just like a girl that I was seeing at the time. I didn't think it was anything serious. So no way did I think that I was going to bring up this child to be my own, which he is. He's now 21, almost 21. and for me, he's one of my children. Anyway, so Kinga had gone out. Kinga's mum was in, I think, sleeping in the flat the next day. Kinga was going to get her hair done or something like that. So Bartek comes into the kitchen, 6-year-old boy, didn't speak English. Now he's fluent, obviously, so I'd say English is better than his Polish, and I didn't speak any Polish. So this little boy is saying to me, "Jak se kanapkę? Jak se kanapkę?" I didn't understand. He wanted a sandwich. I don't understand. I don't understand. What do you want? Kinga's mum was sleeping and she didn't speak English to explain to me anyway. Back then there was kind of no Google Translate or anything that I was aware of. And this little boy, who became my lovely stepson, because I couldn't understand him, decided to punch me in the private area, in my balls basically, and punch me. For those of you that do know me, I don't have very much to say. I'm not that patient when people do things like that, even if it's a kid, because as far as I was concerned, he should have known better. So I grabbed his wrist, his forearm, twisted it, and put him on the floor so he was on his arm, because this little guy, we couldn't communicate, and he was punching me. So, and as I did it, this kid's laying on the floor with me twisting his arm so he can't move, because he just hit me in the privates. Kinga's mum walked in. So I'd known Kinga, been seeing Kinga for 5 months, never met her mum before. Actually, I think we'd met Christmas. She came to England briefly. So we'd met once, she didn't really know me. And there I am with her grandson, kind of pinned to the kitchen floor. Not a very good impression to make to your future mother-in-law, but quite amusing, I think. So as I said, it was Easter. So being in Poland during Easter, being quite a Catholic country, which I respect. I am not a religious person, however, I respect that I'm in a Catholic country, living under the roof of a Catholic family. My mother-in-law is very much so. We sat down for a traditional Polish Easter dinner, lunch, and I'd never experienced that before, which for me was great. You know, I've said before, I love the culture thing, love trying different foods and understanding why we do certain things. There were these painted eggs, just lots of nice different foods. And that was great. And I remember Kinga's mum asking me via Kinga translating into English was, what does Easter mean to Adam? And for me, Easter is the same as Christmas. It means family time. It means time with your family, spending time with the people that you love, enjoying your time, eating food, being merry, and just really appreciating what's happened during the year and appreciating everything that you've got. And as I mentioned before, for me in particular, I don't have any religious beliefs, therefore for me it's about family only. So I made it very clear to Kinga's mum that's how I felt in the beginning, so she had no idea going forward to kind of communicate with me about certain religions, etc. But it was really nice. We had an amazing Easter. The one thing I remember about that Easter, and all of you Poles will remember this as well, the 27th of March was the Sunday, Easter. The 2nd of April 2005, the Pope died. So Pope John Paul, or Jan Paweł II, John Paul II, he passed away. Now again, I didn't really know anything about religion. I knew who the Pope was, I knew what his job was. What I didn't know was where he originally came from, which was Poland, and how dear he was to the Polish people. Now in Kinga's mum's bedroom at the time, there was a photo of him on the wall. Most Polish houses were the same, and he passed away on my first trip to Poland, my first holiday, and everything stopped. It was like the country was in mourning. So all the shops closed. I couldn't understand why couldn't we go and get some food from the shop? Everything was closed. But the country just shut down and it was in mourning. And now I totally understand why, and I totally respect why. But at the time, I was a young 25-year-old, had never had anything to do with religion, knew who this guy was, knew what his job was. But other than that, didn't know much more. So to be here when that happened was like, poof, the country was on lockdown, basically. The country was stopped because of what happened with the Pope. So that was one thing. The other thing I want to talk about, and it took me, this wasn't just my first visit to Poland, it's taken me a lot of time to get used to this. And one thing is the Polish, I don't want to call it manners, but I don't know how else to explain it. Polish people are the most hospitable people I've ever met. They will invite you into their house, they will give you their last sandwich, their last piece of cake, their last cup of tea, to make you feel welcome in their house, in their country. For this, they're very, very hospitable, amazing people. Better than us in the UK, in my opinion, generally. What I found hard to start with was how people would stare at me, especially if we were on the bus, and when I was talking English, I would try to whisper so that I wasn't speaking too loud. People would just stare. And in the UK, if you stare at someone and then they look up and they catch you staring at them, they look away. But in Poland, they just keep looking at you. So me, growing up through my late teens, early 20s, as quite a temperamental young man with a very bad temper, I just wanted to say to these people, what the flipping heck are you looking at? Of course, I couldn't, because I couldn't know and didn't know what to say. And Kinga was like, it's just normal, don't worry about it. We're in Poland now. And then I got used to the fact. The other thing was, you know, I would hold a door open for a lady walking through it, and she would just walk through it without even putting her hand onto the door for the person behind her wouldn't say thank you to me. And I'd be like, why she don't say thank you? And Kinga says, you're in Poland. And you know, now I switch. I go to England, I have my English head on, I do the things that I would normally do in England. I come to Poland and I change how I am. So when I'm in public, when I speak, how I am opening doors. Of course, I'm polite with ladies with pushchairs. I help them. Old ladies walking through the door behind me. Elderly people, I open the door. But generally, people my sort of age, I just walk through now, don't hold the doors open. And that's not me being rude. That's just me adapting to this culture. Nobody appreciates it. Nobody expects it. If you smile at someone in the street here and you've not really met them before, they'll look at you like you're crazy. Whereas in England, that's quite a common thing to do. But as I said, the hospitality and everything here is so much better. So being a stranger to someone in Poland, I found quite hard to deal with because they would stare, they wouldn't say thank you. Being a friend of someone or a friend of a friend, you know, if I met my friend's friend or Kinga's friend, then those people were amazing. And it's not that those people are rude, I want to reiterate that, it's just that the culture's different. And they believe in different things. For example, I remember one time a guy kind of said to me, you know, you don't greet a man before you greet a woman. So if you meet a married couple and you know them, I would always shake the guy's hand first and then give the lady a kiss or shake the lady's hand. And I was told, no, you always greet the lady first. So now I try to do that where I can. But in England, of course, that's not really a thing. If I went out for a meal with my friend and his wife, I'd probably shake my friend's hand first and then kiss his wife. We would always do ladies first and be polite in that way, but that was different. So that took me a while to get used to that sort of thing as well. Lots of different things. I could sit here all day. In fact, I was talking today with my Polish teacher about the different cultures and things regarding Christmas cards and sending messages with best wishes for next year and stuff, and how it's so different between the two countries. We won't go into that because now we're talking about my first visit. The other thing I want to talk about is on our estate there was a bar, and it was a legendary bar called Bar Marek. And right now is no more bar. It was a Małpka shop, and now it's Żabka, like a convenience store. But when I arrived in 2005, that was Kinga's socialising spot, and people that I'd never met before until that time, who are now my very good friends, and they know they are. If they watch this, I remember meeting people in that bar, and I walked in, it was dark and dingy. It had a pool table at one end, it had one of those dartboards with like the rubber, not cork, but like a rubber dartboard, some fruit machines. And the people in there, I was thinking, shit, like, what's going to happen in here? But you know what? I sat down, everybody shook my hand, everybody welcomed me, everybody wanted to drink a vodka with me. And we drank in that bar for years until, unfortunately, it closed down and became a shop, and then we started socialising elsewhere. But it was daunting for an English guy to walk into this dark pub full of Polish people, no English guys. I couldn't speak the language. I couldn't even order a beer at that time. It was quite daunting. But now some of my best friends I met in that bar. So what are we now, 13, yeah, 14 almost 14 years later, and I am very good friends with some of the people we met there. I'm sure there's loads more stories, but I can't remember off the top of my head. That was my first time for Poland, landing at that airport, looking at driving on the cobblestone, seeing all the graffiti, watching people staring at me. People shaking hands is the other thing. So now I'm used to it. Everywhere I go, I shake hands, say hello to people. And I've talked about this on other videos about superstitions and customs and stuff like that. In terms of shaking hands over the threshold at the doorway. But every time, so in England, if you haven't seen your friend for a long time and you see him, you'll shake his hand. If he's a very good friend, you might shake his hand and put your arm around him. If you see that guy every day or every week, you probably won't shake his hand. You know, you say, hi mate, how are you? You don't shake his hand. You could do, but that's not quite normal in England to do that. So to come to Poland where I might see a guy on Monday and he would shake my hand, then I'd see him again on Tuesday and he'd shake my hand again, then Wednesday and Thursday, and then might see him on Saturday in the pub and he'd shake my hand again. That was strange. And you've got to remember at this time in 2005, Polish people had only just started to come to the UK to work. In fact, Kinga was the first person Polish that worked in the company that I worked at. So we weren't so aware as we are now of the culture differences and the fact that everyone shook hands so much. But I quite like that. I like that. I think it shows a bit of respect and stuff. So there you go. My first time in Poland, and some of those things actually took me many years to get used to. But now I think I've got like a Polish head and an English head, and I take one off and put the other one on when I land in the country, and just act like a Pole and try and, you know, they say when in Rome, yeah, do as the Romans do. When in Poland, do as the Poles do. So that's what I tried to do. That's it. Hope you enjoyed my little tale. We'll speak soon. Happy New Year. See ya.